Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi podcast. I am your co-host, Darth Celine.
And I'm your main host, the Artificial Dragon. Yay! Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It has been a hot minute since our last episode back in 2-3 weeks ago now, I believe. Our Ewok episode was like somewhere on the 1st of July, somewhere around there.
Life is life.
Life
Shit
is
gets
life.
busy. You went to G-Fest.
Yes, I did go to G-Fest like a week ago now, have a recording of his episode, and it was amazing. Went up to Chicago, stayed at a hotel, went to G-Fest, got a lot of merchandise, as you probably saw some of the pictures I've shared, both on the Discord and the
community page.
The community page on our YouTube page. But while I was up there, I caught myself a little bit of a bug, so I was kind of out of commission for a week or so.
And I got sick too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, life is life. Apparently, some parasite god out there wants to delay our podcast and the good work that we do here. But anywho, so we're a little bit delayed, as I mentioned before. I never got to shout out to our last Patreon art piece, which is Arden Lin, made by a very new artist that we've been trying out recently. Looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. You saw that, Hannah.
Yes.
And it is currently since I was a little bit late with that one, I decided, you know what? I'm going to let everybody, any tier on Patreon, have free access to Arden Lin. So if you are the lowest or the highest, chances are Arden Lin's is yours for the taking.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good perk for all of our tiers.
Exactly. And to make up for my little tardiness for the last Patreon art piece. But in terms of new Patreon art pieces that we have available, ladies and gentlemen, for this month, I'm throwing in one last art piece that our previous Patreon artist made a little while ago, but I never actually posted. And this one, Hannah, I'm going to share with you in the Discord. It is from a very familiar Old Republic companion character. Whether you dislike them or like them is up to your interpretation, but this is Jacen Wilson. You probably remember this one, Hannah.
Waiting for it to sound.
There it is.
Oh, I do remember this one.
Yeah.
Dark and Light Side Jacen. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a very old one. It's just a little bit of a yin and yang thing going on there. We got the timid, good side, and the
psychopath,
the
dark
psychopathic dominatrix version of her.
I mean, Dark Side Jacen is fucking nuts.
Yeah, she is.
On my Dark Side Sith Warrior run, which I need to get going again. I'm going to see that firsthand.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So yeah, whether you like her or hate her, whether you prefer her light side or her dark side.
Light Side Jacen is a bean.
Yeah, she is. You got an art piece of them. So go ahead and download them if you are the highest tier, which is the consulars for $10. But regardless, if you love our content, we do, of course, have a Patreon at patreon.com/canmayo. Once again, that is patreon.com/canmayo. You could contribute any amount from $3 to $10. And of course, we have a Discord server available for the public, for anybody to join. Go ahead. Join our little community that we have in the making where we talk about general Star Wars lore, memes, or just talking about our day like we've been doing recently.
I believe you'll find that link in the description.
Mm-hmm. And for the Patreons that have contributed to the highest tier, you will also have additional voting benefits on future Patreon exclusive episodes. Yay, we haven't exactly gotten around to July Patreon exclusives because we've been too busy, but hopefully in August we'll have something ready for everybody to vote on.
Oof, next month's gonna be hard.
Especially since my birthday is going to be in August.
When is it? You need to remind me.
It's in August 25th, Hannah.
Okay.
And yes, everybody, August 25th is my official birthday, Artificial Dragon's birthday.
And then my birthday is the month after, September 20th.
Yeah. It's very funny how both of our birthdays align 1 month apart from each other.
Well, yeah, but you're years older than I am.
Yeah, 3 years older. I had to fake there for a little bit, but yes.
Also, support my blog,
please.
Support
Hannah's blog.
Just answering questions, and recently answered a question about how my characters react to the only Ewok character in SWTOR, Treek.
Yeah, the little teddy
the
bear of murder and
bear.
doom. Not to mention the response you did with a porg.
That was a good one.
Funny.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice comedic one, even though the porg is technically not canon to Legends, but it's all over thing.
Fuck it. It's an alternate universe. Timelines can collide, whatever.
Yeah.
No, what is canon anymore? But yes, support my blog. That will be in the description as well.
Indeed. And a shout out to all the highest tier patrons that have supported our podcast. We have Alan Lee, White Wolves, Cameron Lee, Dr. Emboss, Gobez, Live Fought, Milo, and Tristan H. Thank you, everybody, so much for supporting our little podcast. And
a posthumous supporter is Urk the Turtle.
Yep, Urk the Turtle. You're a real one for us, Urk. Hope you're having fun up there looking down upon us. But with that out of the way, Hannah, I already informed you about what today's episode is going to be.
Yes, we are covering History of the Jedi, Part 3.
Part 3, yes. It's been a kind of a long time coming because being people who love villains, we focus more on the Sith.
Can't help it. I like the Sith more. But we need to be fair and also cover the Jedi.
That is very true. And the Jedi, I mean, let's be honest. Without the Jedi, we wouldn't have Sith. Let's just be honest right now.
Fair enough. I know.
But yes, we'll be doing part 3 of the History of the Jedi. The first one was the Jedi Order and their origins on their homeworld. Why can't I think of it? Typhon. Their homeworld of Typhon, and so on and so forth. And the second one was the early histories of the Jedi on their homeworld of Ossus, their new homeworld of Ossus, with, what was his name? Oh, yeah, Xandor and his waifu, Arden Lyn. I just mentioned her in the beginning. And their little rebellion, so on and so forth. But for part 3, we'll be kind of going forward with another individual character that kind of made a name for themselves.
It's not Exar Kun.
Well, not Exar Kun, but you are not far off. We're going on the other side of the equation here.
Ulic Qel-Droma?
Ulic Qel-Droma, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Ulic Qel-Droma is one of those characters that is very important in the grand scheme of Star Wars, and is also a very, very interesting character, as we'll get to in a little bit.
Fair enough. In the Exar Kun episode, I kind of just wrote him off as excuse me, as Exar Kun's apprentice.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was focusing purely on Exar Kun, but in the Tales of a Jedi comic books, which was released right around the same time as Dark Empire was made by the same creator of the Dark Empire comics, it was... how do I explain this? I was purely focusing on Exar Kun and the shenanigans he went up to. Mm-hmm. This time, we're going on the other side of the coin with Ulic Qel-Droma, and he is a very tragic character in comparison.
Okay.
But yeah, so before we get up to Ulic Qel-Droma, let me get you up to speed, Hannah. So, of course, we got the Great Schism, which is the conflict that Xandor was a part of before he got killed by the Jedi and Arden Lyn went into cryo, whatever. Mm-hmm. So after that little event, the Jedi Order would become more closely tied with the Republic as guardians of peace and order across the galaxy, because the carnage that Xandor has brought to the galaxy, didn't exactly look great on the Jedi's resume with the Republic and all that.
So it didn't put the Jedi in a very good
No, it did not. One of their own decided to, hey, let's rampage across the galaxy. Yeah, that's not going to look good on somebody's resume. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they would especially serve as watchers over the Perlimian trade route, which, if you recall, from our previous episodes like a while ago. It's basically the Route 66 of Star Wars, where it goes from the core worlds. I actually think it goes across the entire galaxy into like the Outer Rim and all that. But the entire point is it connects the Republic with the ancient Hutt Empire and its other neighbors that obviously oppose the Republic. And the Jedi were kind of, the guardians of peace and keeping an eye on the Hutt cartels, making sure they don't go into Republic territory. But anyway, and of course we got numerous events, which I'm kind of going to gloss over. One of these events would be the Pius Dia Crusades. We all know that lovely episode.
It's our most popular episode.
Our most popular episode, yeah. It's basically like several thousand years of history that the Jedi has to go through. And then, of course, we got the 100-Year Darkness, also known as the Second Great Schism, which is when a bunch of dark Jedi turned to the dark side as per usual.
Yep.
Then they were exiled to the far reaches of space and ultimately to Korriban. So we already covered that in the first. Go ahead and watch the first history of the Sith if you want to watch that one. Really good one. But let me see. And then, of course, we got the Great Hyperspace War led by Naga Sadow and him running away. Classic Naga Sadow fashion.
Yep.
And then let me see. Eventually, it would lead to another Jedi, Freedon Nad. Another name you might be familiar with here and there.
Yep.
Freedon Nad would find Yavin 4, where Naga Sadow was hiding out, who taught him the secrets of the dark side and all that shit. And then he decided, hey, fuck you, Naga Sadow. Fuck your ghost. I'm going to go to this planet over here called Onderon and create my own kingdom there.
Onderon,
yeah. But yeah, eventually the Jedi would experience a third great schism on Coruscant following Nad's death. This basically led a civil war between the Jedi on Coruscant. The Jedi would be forced out of Coruscant and flee into the Vatar system, where they found ancient technology that was believed to have been used to construct the planets of the star system artificially. And through other sources, we found out that these devices were created by the Celestials. And one thing led to another. The Dark Jedi decided to try using the machines, including this powerful weapon called the Cosmic Turbine. And you want to guess what happens, Hannah?
destroys a planet. I don't know.
Well, you're half right. They decided to activate the Cosmic Turbine, and it destroyed the entire star system, creating a nebula in the process. And killing themselves in the process. So yeah, whippy frickin' do of those Jedi.
Heck of a way to go out.
Yeah, indeed. But the Jedi would continue to thrive in their fortress world of Ossus, especially with the increased knowledge of a great Jedi library made by Udon which is another figure you might be familiar with. At the same time, a new Jedi temple would be constructed on Coruscant, which is the one that we know and love today. During this time, several prominent figures would become famous, one of which is the infamous fallen Jedi Exar Kun, though in this case, there are two others that we will be exploring. The one is Ulic Qel-Droma, and the other is Nomi Sunrider. And let me go ahead and share pictures of those people, because even though Ulic Qel-Droma is important in its own right, Nomi Sunrider is also kind of a underappreciated figure, and she's actually kind of a badass.
Sunrider kind of looks like Mara.
Yeah, she kind of does. Of common thread with a lot of redhead main characters. But,
okay, interesting.
But yeah, so let me go ahead and talk about both characters briefly. Ulic Qel-Droma is a Jedi Knight from the planet of Alderaan, who along with his brother, Kay Qel-Droma, were the children of a renowned Jedi Master, Leon Tessay Qel-Droma. Let me go ahead and send a quick picture of Kay Qel-Droma. Both of these characters are kind of important. Of course, Ulic Qel-Droma is the popular child in comparison of the two, but they are legitimately close brothers.
Okay.
But yes, Ulic Qel-Droma and Kay Qel-Droma, they would be trained by their mother in numerous subjects, as normal nobles would. But never on the Force, since she considered them too young to begin their training. In time, however, she would send them off to the Jedi Academy, where the brothers would find themselves the students of an Arcanian Jedi Master named Arca Jeff. And if you don't remember, Arcanians are they kind of look like elf people, especially with their blank eyes. But this is what Arca looks like. He's the classic Master Yoda of the era. But yeah, Ulic was seen as a man pure of heart and purpose, seen as completely incorruptible. I guess he's more accurately the Anakin Skywalker of his era. I know I called Exile Kun the Anakin Skywalker of his era, but there's a lot of I guess star pupils of the Jedi Order. Ulic Qel-Droma, Exile Kun, Revan, but you get the picture. Mm-hmm. Point is, Ulic Qel-Droma is the best Jedi that ever was. But even though he came across as this arrogant Jedi Knight, those close to him saw it as him having unbounded confidence, to the point that most say courage clouds his judgment. He was talented and skilled, which were driven by his need to prove himself, especially in his younger years, when Alderaanian nobles looked down upon him with disdain, and he wanted to show that he could excel in his tutelage on his own merits instead of using his own family name. So I guess in some regards he's kind of like Count Dooku in a way.
Yeah, but Count Dooku really didn't care about his family name until he left the Order.
That is very true. He didn't get his wealth until after he left the Jedi Order. But point is, he didn't depend on his family name from Alderaan to get his way.
Alderaan?
Yeah, Ulic Qel-Droma is from Alderaan.
Oh, I thought we were still talking about Dooku.
I know Count Dooku's from Sereno, but Ulic Qel-Droma is from Alderaan. But anyway, let's see. At one point, he studied the Force so deeply that his mother worried he missed the meaning of what it meant to be a Jedi. But Ulic dismissed her worries by reciting the Jedi Code word for word, which kind of reassured his mother that he was going down the right path. He's the noble knight, just to give you a better perspective of Ulic Qel-Droma. Let me see. He was also very overprotective of his brother Kay, and both of them would do a lot of things together. Like if you look at Kay Qel-Droma, he has a robot arm. There was one occasion where a Sith cultist cut off his arm, but Ulic Qel-Droma defended his brother until, help could arrive and retrieve them. He was that loyal to his brother. But yes, let me see. He, along with his brother and fellow Jedi Knight Tot Danata, who is a Twi'lek, would be counted by Arca to travel to Onderon, which had recently reestablished contact with the Republic. And I'm going to skip a little bit of this because there's an entire story behind it. But point is, Onderon, the ruling families were the descendants of Freed and Nad, and they were up to a lot of evil bullshit, and they found out about it, stamped it out, and put in a new family that wasn't evil. That was that entire mission to get their promotion to knighthood and all that. Now let's go to Nomi Sunrider, and she's a little bit more interesting in terms of origin compared to Ulic Qel-Droma. Okay. She was once named Nomi her last name is Da Boba.
Send it to me.
Sure thing, Hannah. If it'll let me. Yeah, it's kind of a weird last name compared to her new surname, which is Sunrider. But you'll probably pronounce it better than I could.
Boda.
Boda.
Da hyphen is a pause. Boda.
Boda. But yes, that was her original last name is Boda.
Boda.
Yeah, it was a Sunrider was actually the surname of her husband, who is a Jedi Knight.
Okay.
So Nomi at first wasn't special, as she was in awe of her husband's deep connection with the Force. Her husband's name is Andor Sunrider. Her husband kept insisting that she had a similar connection to the Force, but she has yet to realize it. Both would eventually have a child together, a girl by the name of Vima. However, when the small family was instructed to go to a planet to complete Andor's training, they would be stumbled upon by gangsters hired by Boga the Hutt. And the reason why they were set upon by these gangsters is because Andor carried a bunch of Adagan crystals, which were used for constructing lightsabers, but they were very important for the criminal cartel at the time. And tragically, when Andor was confronting the criminals, they unleashed this little animal called a Gormworm, which is a small reptile that has venom so potent it could kill a creature as large as a Ranto within seconds. And obviously, Andor, being a normal-sized human, succumbed to the poison quite easily. Nomi would rush to her husband's side, her daughter in hand, and would be threatened by the thugs at gunpoint who demanded the crystals. Nomi, however, would see a Force ghost of her husband who simply told her, "Don't weep for me, Nomi. This is not the time for tears. Take my lightsaber. Use it to protect yourself. The Force is with you." And Nomi reluctantly picked up her husband's lightsaber and used it to successfully fight off the criminals, even killing 2 of them. However, Nomi Sunrider, despite defending himself, would feel immense guilt from killing the thugs. But her husband's Force ghost comforted her and told her she must now walk down the road she was afraid to tread. So this was basically her calling as a Jedi Knight to take her husband's place.
That is an interesting origin for a Jedi Knight.
She was just a random woman who happened to be the wife of this Jedi, this aspiring Jedi Knight, and then, he's dead. Now I have to take up his blade.
That's pretty cool.
Along with a child, mind you.
Before the Jedi realized attachment's bad.
Little did they know, Nomi Sunrider was the wife in this instance. Here's the exact picture of a Nomi Sunrider over her husband's body, by the way.
Oh, and the daughter is still a baby, too.
Yep.
She doesn't look that sad.
Well,
it's artistic, I know.
It's artistic interpretation, yes. But point is, Nomi Sunrider took up the position that her husband now has. So she went to this planet, learned the ways of the Force, and she actually became... so there's this Jedi Master named Fawn, who is basically a reptile creature. She, over time, would become Fawn's most powerful student. In the way of the Force, she was so skilled as she knew the art of battle meditation, to the point she could compel enemies to kill each other. She was also particularly skilled in battle mind, along with dispelling Force illusions. Though under Odon himself, she would eventually learn the ability called Sever Force, which is basically a counterspell, but for the Force. Basically, Sever Force is such a rare Force ability that it combats the Darksider's capability to use the Force by pulling it away from them, essentially cutting them off from the Force by killing the midichlorians in their bodies.
Oof.
So yeah, but permanently, potentially.
Damn.
So yeah, Nomi Sunrider, even though she looks like a meek woman, she's pretty freaking powerful.
Yeah, she sounds pretty badass.
Yeah, she is pretty cool. And Nomi Sunrider, she would be one of the Jedi. Both Ulic Qel-Droma and Nomi Sunrider would meet during the Naddist uprisings on Onderon, when Nomi would be among the Jedi reinforcements sent during the battle, and the two would become close. 2 years would go by, and it was noted that Ulic and Nomi would enjoy each other's company, even learning to fly Onderonian war beasts together. So, love is abound between these two. And eventually, both would face a new threat in the form of a Krath. The Krath are basically a dark side cult that originate in the Empress Teta system. You might vaguely recall from the Exile episode, but these guys are basically the descendants of Empress Teta from...
Gee, if the name wasn't obvious.
I know, the name wasn't so obvious. But no, I find that really ironic. Despite her being the hero of a republic, now her descendants are working for the dark side. But yeah, there's the Krath cult, and they basically began a holy crusade starting above the capital of Karos Major. Let's see. Well, actually, it's one of the outlying worlds. Both Nomi and Ulic would be sent to command a Republic fleet to provide aid to the world, because that's one of the few worlds that's still loyal to the Republic instead of the Krath. And basically, they were sent there like, hey, Krath, stop what you're doing right now and turn around and stop this bullshit holy crusade. Unfortunately, the Krath were more powerful than expected and were zealous enough in their cause that suicide fighters crashed into the Republic ships. Yeah, these guys... Kamikaze bullshit. It also didn't help that one of the leaders of a Krath is a powerful illusionist, so their force looked a lot larger than it actually is. A lot of classical illusionists weapon bullshit. Just kind of like what Naga Sadao did with a Great Hyperspace War, if you think about it. But yes, during this attack, Ulic Qel-Droma would be severely injured, and the captain commanding the Republic fleet would order a full retreat, with Nomi Sunrider tending to Ulic's wounds. Disturbed by this revelation, the Jedi called an enclave on the nearby world of Denaba, where 10,000 Jedi would attend an amphitheater, where they discussed the growing darkness and the possible rise of a Sith from the Natus uprisings, and now the Krath Holy Crusades. So there's a lot of shit going down right now.
Yeah.
At this enclave, Ulic Qel-Droma brought forward a controversial idea of a member of a Jedi infiltrating the Krath itself and destroying them from within, which was met by huge scorn by many members of the Jedi, including his own mentor, Jarka Jeff. But you could probably understand where he's coming from. Like, if you throw enough bodies off the thread, sure, they might go away, but we're wasting a lot of lives. If we kill them from the inside out, we don't have to lose as many Jedi. Which does make sense, but at the same time, you are kind of going into the belly of a beast at that point. At around the same time, the Enclave would be, while this entire shit is going on, you remember Vodo Boz, who is the master of Exile? Yep. Exile was at Korriban at the time, talking to the spirit of Frida Nad, and Vodo Boz was trying to help out his former apprentice before Frida Nad was like, fuck off, old man. And Exile was subjected to the dark side, and it was so painful that he screamed throughout the Force, enough that the entirety of this Jedi Enclave heard it, and they're all like, what the fuck was that? So yeah, this entire thing with Exile is going on the same time of what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. A Krath fleet would go in orbit over the planet that this Enclave was on, and they had dispatched a shit ton of escape pods, which unleashed a new weapon created by the Krath, which is what is called the Krath War Droids. And this is a picture of what they look like.
Okay.
So basically, they're kind of weird.
Like Terminators.
Yeah, they kind of do look like Terminators.
Just without the red eyes.
Yeah. They do have what is called an energy crossbow, I believe. But point is, these things were yeeted at the Jedi Enclave in massive numbers, and they just went ham on the Jedi. Like, there were a shit ton of casualties. Many Jedi, Arca Jeff, he would tip the scales a little bit because he was a veteran of what was called the Great Droid Rebellion. And drawing on his experiences from that conflict, he used a force technique that destroyed the internal mechanisms of a large number of droids. So basically like Force Crush, but basically for droids.
Cool.
So he had destroyed a good amount of droids, and in that process, he saved his own student, Ulic Qel-Droma, from certain death, and Ulic was in the middle of like, Master, you saved me, but then, plot twist, one of the droids managed to kill Arca Jeff in the back.
Oof.
And Ulic Qel-Droma was bawling at his master dying before his eyes. As he's cradling his master, his body just evaporates into the never realm of the Force, leaving behind his robe. So he did become one with the Force, at least. But yeah, afterwards, the conflict, the battle would dissipate, and the Jedi would emerge victorious. But Ulic did not celebrate. Ulic wanted to end this carnage and madness that the Krath had led in their crusade. So he decided to make up his mind, and he volunteered himself to go destroy the Krath from within as an undercover agent. Despite several Jedi Masters, including the Keeper of the Jedi Library himself, Oldon trying to dissuade him from undergoing such a mission, they did such a thing like they showed him a holocron of the Sith and what it does to somebody by corrupting them with the dark side. But despite being shown all of this, what would happen if he got himself deep into the dark side? Ulic Qel-Droma latched back. He's like, you have the means of conquering the dark side of the Force, but you would much rather let innocent people die than stop it right here, right now. And the Masters were like, well, we tried. Whatever you do, don't say we didn't warn you, Ulic Qel-Droma. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Jedi Masters would depart, having said all that they could. Qel-Droma offered to come along with Ulic Qel-Droma because he generally had a bad feeling about this. But Ulic Qel-Droma's like, no, I need to go down this path alone. But don't worry, we'll be together in another month or so. And, does a nice brotherly hug. And Nomi Sunrider also voiced her concerns. They share a nice little kiss. And then Ulic Qel-Droma ventured to the Empress Teta system as a smuggler and decided to infiltrate the capital of a Krath. Their capital is what is called the Iron Citadel. And basically, he went to this little gathering because there was a bunch of rebellions that the Krath had to suppress, and they were on the verge of executing these political prisoners. And Ulic Qel-Droma was in the crowd at the time, watching this execution about to happen, with the leaders of the Krath in full attendance of this execution. But the prisoners decided. Okay, so first off, the people that were about to be executed actually wanted this to happen, and they broke out of their restraints and were like, "Dev to the people who sullied the name of Empress Teta," and they went to charge at one of the leaders of the Krath with a knife in hand. And Ulic Qel-Droma is just in the crowd. He could have allowed this to pass, like, I don't have to put blood on my hands, but he was so clouded by vengeance that he was all like, okay, I need to earn the trust of a Krath and take away their power base right here, right now. So he acted, killing the assassin that was in attendance, right in full view of the leaders of a Krath. And the Krath leader's like, what the hell? What's a Jedi doing here? And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, I have become dissuaded about the teachings of the light side. I wish to learn more about the dark side of the Force. They're like, oh, okay. You saved my life, so sure, why the hell not? And so basically this, even though it looked like an execution, I kind of forgot to add this, but Ulic Qel-Droma briefly talked to the spirit of Frieda Nad before he got killed by Exile Kun on Yavin 4. And Frieda Nad basically warned the leaders of a Krath that Ulic Qel-Droma was coming. So this entire execution that they staged, it was meant to draw out Ulic Qel-Droma. And they have him right in between their fingers. So basically, they were all like, okay, Ulic Qel-Droma, if you want to learn more about the dark side, why don't you come have some private time with us? And the leaders basically, they took Ulic further into the Iron Citadel, where the dark side, so a little bit of a context. The leaders of a Krath are two descendants of Empress Teta. Let me see if I could pull them up real quickly. There we go. So the woman is named Alima, and the male, both of them are cousins. Let me see if I could pull out their name. Alima and...
You mentioned Alima in the Exile.
Yeah, Alima is kind of the...
She's a sorceress.
Yeah, she's basically the sorceress. And who the fuck was the other guy? Sital, that's his name. Alima and Sital, they're basically cousins. And Alima, she was the seductress of the two. And she was
like... Duh!
I know, she looks very fan service-like in there.
You can't tell because of her big boobs.
Very, very fair, Hannah. But Alima, she decided, you know what, I'm going to drug this Jedi, have him succumb to the poison, and then take him to the dungeons, subject him to the worst horrors and torture imaginable, and see if he actually is being legit with his words. So basically, Ulic Qel-Droma was being subjected to a bunch of torture methods, and eventually Sato kind of ejected him with his dark side poison, which he proclaimed, if you do not, it will basically kill you from the inside out, unless you use your full power of the dark side to purge it from your system. Okay. Which Ulic did do, but it basically knocked him out, and a little while later, he woke up, and he was all like, okay, you got some, look, to show my loyalty to you, I'm gonna point this out right now. Your weapon systems and your defense systems are kind of outdated. I'm going to need to update them for you. I'm going to renew your schematics of the Iron Citadel. You know, he's basically doing the shit to make him look like he's on their side and has their best interests in mind. He's doing everything he can. But at the same time, a new visitor came to the Iron Citadel, and it was Nomi's Sunrider, who wanted to rescue, I wouldn't quite say lovers, since they're not at that point at this time, but I guess rescue her friend, so to speak. And Sato was all like, we got another Jedi. All right, Ulic Qel-Droma, if you want me to prove your loyalty, I want you to execute her. Oof. But not quite then. Ulic Qel-Droma was kind of going forward with it, but secretly he's all like, Nomi's Sunrider. She's a very capable Jedi. She'll probably sneak her way out before I could even have the chance to execute her. But before then, he decided to send her a secret message via a servant droid, basically telling her, hey, Nomi's Sunrider, please do not rescue me again. I have their trust. I do not want to break their trust by having you come to try to rescue me over and over again. But unfortunately, that droid was intercepted by Sato, who basically saw the damning evidence that he needed that Ulic Qel-Droma was not legitimate. Mm-hmm. And he was so furious, he decided to send an assassin to try and kill Ulic Qel-Droma. Alima, the cousin, Alima, she had other ideas. She had a little interest in Ulic Qel-Droma, to the point where they did the deed together in bed.
What? Did the deed in bed? That's such a redundant fucking statement.
Well, okay, you get the point. They did the deed.
Yes, they did the do.
Yeah, there's literally a comic strip where they were both in bed together and she was covering herself and all that shit. Point is, Alima has her own ambitions, and she saw her cousin as basically an annoyance. She wanted to take the Krath for herself, and saw Ulic Qel-Droma as a nice little pawn to play with her fingers. But Ulic Qel-Droma was on his way to find Nomi Sunrider and bring her to her execution, but she actually escaped. And at the same time, the assassin jumped Ulic Qel-Droma, attempting to kill his ass. But Ulic Qel-Droma was like, motherfucker, that's a tell fucker. He wants to kill me. Alright, I guess I'll have to kill him first. So he goes up to the Iron Citadel and he confronts Sital. And they basically have this climactic duel where both of them are fighting, Ulic with his lightsaber and Sital with his alchemical Sith sword, whatever the fuck it is. And Sital actually reveals that the dark side poison that he injected Ulic Qel-Droma with didn't actually, it wasn't a poison that you could just get rid of with your powerful presence in the Force. It's actually a drug that increases its power via rage. So anytime Ulic Qel-Droma is feeling angry, he is literally overpowered by the dark side, basically twisting his mind until he's nothing but a rage-filled monster, which is the entire reason why he decided to go Sital in the first place.
It's kind of like how I think it was not Force Jedi Survivor 2.
Yeah.
When you go too far to the dark side, you just break and go on a rampage.
Yeah, you go on a rampage.
That's a pretty cool mechanic.
Yeah. That's basically what we're seeing with Ulic Qel-Droma. He is just so blinded by rage. And his Jedi companions, Nomi Sunrider, the Twi'lek Jedi, and his own brother, tried to rescue him. And they saw him kill Sital right in front of their very own eyes. And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, okay, brother, you killed one of the leaders. Come on, let's get the fuck out of here. But Ulic Qel-Droma, in a sheer fit of rage, screamed into the Force that basically sent the other occupants in the room flying. And he's all like, get out of here. I will not ask you again.
Force scream.
Yeah, it's basically, I did say screaming before, but
it's a Force scream!
But, point is, Ulic Qel-Droma was kind of at the point of no return, and the rest of the Jedi were like, okay, let's give a fuck out of Dodge before he changes his mind. And Alima, she took the position of a leader of a Krath, with Ulic Qel-Droma as her, I guess, fellow warlord / consort, so to speak. And, over the coming days, they would do more deeds together. And Alima actually gave Ulic Qel-Droma a little amulet that increased his power in the Force by 10-fold. That might sound familiar. Because, okay, I'll wait until I get to that certain part. But anyway, where was I? Okay, so Nomi Sunrider and the rest of the Jedi tried one last attempt to rescue Ulic Qel-Droma, because it's very clear that Ulic Qel-Droma isn't in his right mind right now, that he's succumbed by the dark side of the Force. If they could take him back to the Jedi Masters, they could probably purge him of the dark side and all that fancy schmancy stuff. And they literally, went in Kool-Aid Man style with these giant Onderon war beasts. And at first, Alima, who's a very powerful sorceress, used her powers of illusion to try and drive the Jedi away. But Nomi Sunrider, who is a powerful practitioner of battle meditation, basically dispelled these Force illusions, basically making Alima look like a helpless child before her powers. And she's like, come on, Ulic, we need to get out of here. You're not yourself right now. Let's go back. And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, no. I proclaimed that I would do my best to avenge my master and make sure no more innocent people would die. But it was very clear that he's still not in his right mind, even though he's kind of telling himself that he's got this under control, which he obviously isn't. And there's this one scene where Ulic Qel-Droma and the rest of the Jedi basically jumped Ulic Qel-Droma all at the same time. Like, you remember that one moment from our Curse of Straw campaign where the Revenant was doing his big evil speech, and then
jump his ass.
Jump his ass.
Jump this fool.
That's basically what's going on with Ulic Qel-Droma.
Okay, to describe that, little deviation here, the wizard of the group is a time wizard.
Yep.
Froze the Revenant's ass in place, and said, jump this fool. And then
he got immediately killed in one round.
Yep, we killed him in one round.
God damn.
We all just imagine he wakes up in a field like, what the fuck? All the way back in Barovia. The village of Barovia.
Never before have I ever felt so bad for a monster before that day. But that's basically what was going on with the rest of the Jedi and Ulic Qel-Droma. They basically hogtied his ass and decided to bring him onto the War Beast, and Ulic Qel-Droma was metaphorically foaming at the mouth because he's like, no, you motherfuckers, I'm trying to do good, let me go! And Nomi Sunrider is seeing all this, and she's like, okay, everybody, even though Ulic Qel-Droma is not in his right mind, we can't exactly bring him to the Jedi Masters against his own will. And they were basically forced to let Ulic Qel-Droma go and depart the mission because he's essentially too far gone at that point. Mm-hmm. And at the same time as the Jedi were leaving, Lima and Ulic were about to do another deed, I know. Guess who walks right in to ruin their moment?
Exar Kun?
Exar Kun. He's all like, what's up, bitches? I'm Exar Kun. What's up? And there's that classic scene where Alima tries to use her powers of a dark side against Ulic Qel-Droma, and Ulic Qel-Droma just uses the force to push her away, like, be gone, what? That sort of thing. And Ulic Qel-Droma and Exar Kun would have a fateful duel. And both practitioners have the amulets, and they're basically coalescing in their connection in the dark side, which summoned a bunch of Sith Lords from the ancient past who proclaimed both Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma master and apprentice.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then afterwards, what was the name of that? Why am I not remembering the name of that one Sith Lord?
Marker Ragnos?
There we go, Marker Ragnos, that's his name. Yeah, Marker Ragnos was basically the Sith Lord that proclaimed Exar Kun the master and Ulic Qel-Droma the apprentice, and they did these little symbols in both of their faces. But yeah, point is, Ulic Qel-Droma, Exar Kun, and Alima now share a common cause with Exar Kun's Brotherhood of the Sith. And let me see. I skipped way ahead in my notes. But yeah, after this point, Ulic Qel-Droma would become the face of the Krath Holy Crusades. And while the Krath were powerful, they alone wouldn't be enough to face the Republic and Jedi. So Ulic was tasked by Exar Kun to find more allies. And one of these allies was the Mandalorian Crusaders, led by this lovely man named Mandalore the Indomitable, who began their crusade in the Empress Teta system. Despite being surprised by the Mandalorians, Ulic would contact them and demand a surrender, which the Mandalorians obviously laughed at because they're the invaders and they're being conquered. Like, how dare you? You have the absolute gall to ask us to surrender when we are conquering you. And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, all right, you Mandalorians love your personal combats, you love your honor duels. I want to fight you, Mandalore the Indomitable. If I win, your Mandalorians are mine to command, but if you win, the Empress Teta system is yours.
Let me guess, Ulic Qel-Droma wins.
Yeah, Ulic Qel-Droma wins. Just making a long story short, they had this, they basically fought on even ground, and Ulic Qel-Droma wasn't allowed to use his Force abilities or his lightsaber, and Mandalore the Indomitable had the advantage in this battle. Like, he had his Basilisk war droid and his own war axe. But despite all of these advantages, Ulic Qel-Droma utterly curb stomped the Mandalore. And here's his awesome badass picture of Ulic Qel-Droma winning over the Indomitable.
The Mask of Mandalore the Indomitable is so cool.
Yeah, the Mask of Mandalore is so awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, and Mandalore admitted defeat, and he asked for an honorable death. Instead, Ulic allowed him to live, as he saw the Indomitable as a worthy ally and skilled warrior, instead allowing him to lead the Mandalorians, but under the banner of the Sith. And this is the very first instance where the Mandalorians and the Sith were kind of buddy-buddies.
Well, until the, not the Galactic Civil War, the
Clone
Cold
Wars,
War.
yeah. Well, the Cold War too, yeah, that's true.
That's what I just said.
But anyway, so after this, the new alliance did come in handy, as Ulic and the Indomitable were able to capture an entire Republic shipyard, and were planning to use them to invade Coruscant against the wishes of Exar Kun. But Exar Kun, he was all like, okay, whatever, Ulic Qel-Droma, do whatever you need to do, but I'm not going to save you, just remember that. But yeah, the Ulic Qel-Droma and Mandalore the Indomitable decided to invade Coruscant itself. And they were doing a fairly good job of, like, they found more ships and more weapons to retrieve. But Ulic Qel-Droma, he was up at the front, personally slain the Republic soldiers, some Jedi. But Alima, over the coming months, she kind of grew jealous over Ulic Qel-Droma. Like, what the fuck? He's supposed to be my puppet. Why is he getting all the attention and glory instead of me? And Alima decided to pull the classic backstab option and decided to order the forces of Krath and Mandalorians to retreat, basically stranding Ulic Qel-Droma to the enemies of Krath.
Okay.
And Ulic Qel-Droma, he was like, hey, where did everybody go? And then he got captured by a shit ton of Jedi. They basically used the Sever Force technique on him to basically deprive him of his connection to the Force, at least in that brief instance. And he would be taken into trial by the entirety of the Galactic Senate.
And Exar Kun comes to save his ass.
Yeah, you know that famous scene where Exar Kun breaks into the entire senatorial gathering, kills the Supreme Chancellor, has his duel with Vodal Bass, the classic Master versus Apprentice duel, and then leaves with his apprentice in charge, while crippling the entirety of the Republic in one fatal move. And then afterwards, the Indomitable informed Ulic Qel-Droma of Alima's betrayal. He initially wanted to kill Alima, but Exar Kun had other ideas, and he assigned Alima to command Naga Sadow's former dreadnought, which had the abilities to supernova stars. But he didn't inform her about the necessary steps to use said power, so she got consumed by the very supernova she created.
Oof.
And that supernova, which started an entire chain, was going to affect the Jedi homeworld of Ossus. And Exar Kun's like, come, my apprentice. We have so much Jedi knowledge and secrets to plunder from the great Jedi library before it gets consumed by the supernova. Let's go. And Ulic Qel-Droma and Exar Kun invaded Ossus. And on the ground, there's an entire evacuation effort by Nomi Sunrider, Qel-Droma, and the rest of the Jedi. And Qel-Droma, you know, he has this legitimately close bond with Ulic, and he sensed him in the Force. And he's all like, okay, I'm going to go get in my starfighter, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to bring him right back. So he gets into his fighter, and he's kind of like having a little dogfight with Ulic Qel-Droma, who shot down Qel-Droma. He crash lands. Ulic Qel-Droma's ship lands right next to K, and Qel-Droma is like, Ulic, I'm your brother. What are you doing? Turn your back from the dark side and come back to the light. And Ulic Qel-Droma is like, you have gone in my way too often, little brother. It is time to end this little farce personally. And he takes out his lightsaber. And Qel-Droma reluctantly also took out his lightsaber. And they had this fateful...
Oh, look, another Obi-Wan Anakin battle. Yeah,
but this one is arguably a lot more tragic. They fought through the entirety of the streets of Ossus. And then, so Ulic Qel-Droma basically cut off Qel-Droma's robot arm, disarming him of his lightsaber. And Qel-Droma is trying his best to get to Ulic Qel-Droma. Like, brother, there's still good in you. You could come back from this. Please, don't do this. And Ulic Qel-Droma was yelling at him in pure rage to shut up. You're worthless, you're a failure, and I wish I never knew you. And he struck down his brother. And at the same time, Nomi's Sunrider saw the entire thing happen right before her eyes. And Nomi's Sunrider, she is also believed that Ulic Qel-Droma could be brought back to the light side. But at that point, after seeing her lover strike down her own brother, his own brother, she believed that he can no longer be saved. And Qel-Droma's body fell to the ground, but then, miraculously, Ulic Qel-Droma fell to his knees, and his eyes swelled with tears and emotion after seeing what he had done to his own kin, and he screamed at the top of his lungs that he felt remorse in that very instance. As I mentioned before, he's consumed by this dark side poison, which is the entire reason why he was consumed by the dark side and not acting himself. In that brief instance, he was basically stupefied. He was basically stupefied, and at that moment, Nomi's Sunrider decided to unleash the full powers of the Severed Force, or the light side barrier technique, and she completely severed Ulic Qel-Droma's connection to the Force forever.
Oof.
And at that moment, Ulic Qel-Droma felt like his head was clearer. Since he no longer has a connection to the dark side, he realize all the horrible things that he has done, and he comes to his utter realization, like, I have done so many terrible things. I thought I was doing good, but the dark side consumed me. I destroyed friendships. I killed my brother, my master. I could never avenge him. And the rest of the Jedi were all like, all right, Ulic, we understand that the dark side clouded your judgment, but you are the only one who's closest to Exile Kun and where his base of operations are. Where is he right now? And Ulic Qel-Droma led them directly to Yavin 4. And of course, we know the entire confrontation. See the Exile Kun episode if you want that, but basically, Exile Kun was no longer a threat, and he's basically a force spear trapped in one of the temples of Yavin 4. And Exile Kun, Ulic Qel-Droma, sorry. Ulic Qel-Droma played his part to help the Jedi, and at one point he went to the surface of Yavin 4 himself to kind of survey the damage, but he could not find or hear anything, and he was kind of forced to leave. Little did he realize, Exile Kun was trying to reach out to him, but little did he realize Ulic Qel-Droma no longer has a connection to the Force, so he was just led there in the temple to rot. So, after that entire thing, for the next 8 years, Ulic would continue to wander and try to hide from his past, as many of the galaxy still considered him a war criminal. Ulic decided to try finding a world where he would become permanently isolated from the wider galaxy, and he hired this smuggler named Hogan, who brought him to some backwater world to live on. Hogan first brought him to Yavin 4, which had slowly began to recover from the devastation of a previous war, and even recited the battle of what happened here, very unaware that his very client was the war criminal that helped end the war in the first place. So Ulic Qel-Droma was basically this refugee, this hermit that's trying to run away from his past deeds, but he was on Yavin 4, and it's this very haunting figure, this very haunting panel, where he's looking around this basically ghost town, and he's seen the numerous spirits of all the people he has murdered, including Qel-Droma, and he basically told the smuggler, no, this is not the place for me, let's find another planet. So eventually they found this other planet called Rinvar. And Rinvar is not a particularly special place. It's basically another Hoth.
Okay.
And he was all like, okay, this is actually the world I would love to be isolated on. All right. And he pays the smuggler and he decides to make his home in one of the deserted temples that was on Rinvar. Despite being the only person on the entire planet, Ulic couldn't find peace, and he killed time by practicing his still operating lightsaber, lamenting the fact that it was an extension of himself and more or less a tool now. And this is a quote that he said, "I am alone. This place is so quiet, empty. But still, I have no peace. The Force has abandoned me. I feel nothing." One day, he would fall into a chasm that had him buried, and during that time, he pondered on allowing the icy waste to end his suffering, so that he could no longer feel the guilt and betrayal that continues to gnaw at his being. However, a Force spirit of his mentor, Arca Jeff, appeared to him and told Ulic that he still had a purpose in the galaxy. He was still stronger than he realized. Ulic, inspired by his mentor's words, dug himself out of the chasm and promised he would continue living. But for what purpose, he still didn't know. Nomi's Sunrider, on the other hand, would be among one of the more prevalent Jedi of that era, as she would help rebuild the Order and the Republic, and she would actually become the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. Basically, Nomi's Sunrider was basically being the bureaucrat leading rebuilding efforts across the galaxy, and she was so consumed with her time that she never had the opportunity to teach the ways of a Force to her now adult daughter, Vima Sunrider. And Vima, she's acting like the typical teenager. She's like, my mom is so busy. Does she not value my time? And nobody, Nomi, I don't know why Nomi Sunrider couldn't find somebody to simply tutor her while she's away, but I guess she's that busy. So Vima Sunrider decided, okay, I've heard about this Jedi, Ulic Qel-Droma, that my mom once spoke highly of. He's somewhere in the galaxy. He knows the ways of a Force that I could have a better grasp at. I am going to try and find him, even though he's kind of a war criminal. He did help my mom in the past, so I'm going to go find him. And she has stumbled across the smuggler who gave the basic description of a man that he put on Rinvar, and she's like, hey, this guy is Ulic Qel-Droma. Wait, what? It's a war criminal that is running away from half of the Jedi in the galaxy? And basically, the smuggler took Vima to Rinvar. She finds Ulic Qel-Droma, and despite having some hesitancy to actually train Vima Sunrider, being the daughter of a woman that he once loved and betrayed. After enough persistence, he decided, okay, I might as well teach you, but a fair warning, I do not have a connection to the Force anymore. And Vima's like, that's fine. That's fine. And there's actually this nice little dialogue between both of them as they talk about the current situation and why Vima believed Ulic Qel-Droma would make a good teacher for her. Nima doesn't know you're here, does she? My mother doesn't notice whether I'm there or not. She doesn't know how badly I want to be a Jedi. Do you realize the cost of being a Jedi? I have watched my master slain, murdered my own brother, betrayed your mother. All of this, only to become blinded to the Force. I no longer enjoy my memories, Vima. I have wandered too far, seen too much. I have the blood of enough children on my hands. Why would you want anything I could teach you? Because you're Ulic.
Okay.
But yeah, despite lacking a connection to the Force, Ulic trained Vima in everything he knew about being a Jedi, and he would even help her in constructing her first lightsaber. They would spar a lot, and despite having no connection to the Force, Ulic Qel-Droma's mastery in lightsaber combat was still there, which is pretty goddamn impressive if you know lore of lightsabers. Let's see. Eventually, both master and student decided to showcase their skills by sculpting an ice statue with their lightsabers. Vima would sculpt her father under Sunrider, and Ulic sculpted his old master, Jarka Jeff. And initially, Ulic kind of had some hesitancy because he's all like, Vima, why would I want to sculpt a statue with the lightsaber? I am blind to the Force. I can't do anything. And Vima basically says, well, even a blind artist can create a masterpiece, so why not? And eventually, Nomi's Sunrider, I forgot to mention. So there's this other character named Solovar, who is the female Cathar who scratched out Exar Kun's face in this episode.
Yep.
And her mate actually joined Exar Kun's side, and he also got killed in the supernova. And during this entire endeavor, Exar Kun is gone, but Silvar, she basically blames Ulic Qel-Droma for all the suffering that she has endured, because she essentially has nobody else to blame except Ulic Qel-Droma, because he's the only one still out there. Nomi Sunrider and Silvar, they went to Rinvar. But Nomi's Sunrider came first, and she was all like, it was a very awkward reunion between both former lovers, and Vima was being all like, no, Ulic Qel-Droma actually gave a damn about my training. You were too busy. You were too busy with rebuilding the galaxy to even consider teaching me. And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, look, I taught her as much as I could. And she's doing all right. She's a very good student. She made a nice little crystal statue of your former husband. And Nima's Sunrider was all like, you mind if I check it out? And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, sure, go ahead. And Ulic Qel-Droma is just by himself, pondering his actions. And then Silvar comes up, and she's like, all right, Ulic Qel-Droma, you have avoided justice long enough. It is time to bring you in for the crimes you have committed against the Republic, and for being the collaborator of the one who brought my husband over to the dark side. And basically, they have this duel where they have this little exchange and Ulic Qel-Droma is trying not to be the aggressor here because he didn't want to take another life because he has already regretted his actions. And after a little bit, Ulic Qel-Droma found himself at the edge of a cliff, and he's like, I do not want to commit any more pain or suffering as long as I live. So go ahead, strike me down. If killing me will alleviate you of your anger and rage, just as it did me, then so be it. And Silvar, she goes to strike down Ulic Qel-Droma, but she stopped herself. And she was all like, the one person who could alleviate me of all of my rage was you, Ulic Qel-Droma. But at that moment, Ulic Qel-Droma was fired upon by the smuggler, who was like, yeah! Finally, I killed the famed Ulic Qel-Droma. They will sing my praises in history. And Silvar was turned to the smuggler, and she was like,
dude, what the fuck?
Silvar was like, the only person that is stopping me from killing you right now is the very same one you just killed. So get the fuck out of here. And Nomi's Sunrider just was comforting Ulic Qel-Droma in his last moments. And basically, Nomi Sunrider forgives Ulic Qel-Droma for all that he had done. And Ulic Qel-Droma was like, I thank you, Nomi. I can finally feel peace. And in his last moments, he was, for the last time, embraced by the Force as his body slowly fades away into the nether realm of the Force.
Even though he was severed from the Force?
Basically,
or
he was
just not stick.
It did not stick. It was basically his little redemption arc of sorts. In the same way that Darth Vader was accepted into the nether realm of the Force afterwards.
Okay, you say Netherrealm, but that's technically hell.
Well, okay. Netherrealm, the
Afterlife. Netherrealm is hell.
Sorry, Neverworld, Neverrealm, Neverworld of the Force.
Okay.
But yeah, basically in his last moments, Ulic Qel-Droma was redeemed in the light side of the Force, and he has right the wrongs that he had committed under Exile. Following his death, a large mausoleum was built in his honor on Rinvar, and his coffin was placed within. It would be surrounded by a trio of spectral guardians that defend his remains from intruders, which is kind of weird since he was, he shouldn't have any remains remaining, but whatever. Few Jedi would actually know about Ulic Qel-Droma's mausoleum. Count Dooku was one of those people, though. Long story short, there's an entire video game called The Clone Wars. I know there's a lot of Clone Wars in this, but basically the entire plot of that game is that there's this super weapon called the Dark Reaper that Dooku was on the verge of reactivating. And the Jedi realized that this super weapon was from the days of a great Sith War, Ulic Qel-Droma's time. And they decided to visit Ulic Qel-Droma's mausoleum to find a way to stop the Dark Reaper. Anakin Skywalker would be the one to converse with Ulic Qel-Droma's spirit. And Ulic Qel-Droma would give him some knowledge that would protect him from the super weapon. And this is a quote that both of them shared right here. "The knowledge you seek is very powerful, Anakin Skywalker. Use it carefully, or it will lead you to the dark side. I am not afraid. You should be. I once fought I was impervious to the lure of the dark side. I was mistaken. Do not take the same path as me."
Spoiler alert, he fucking does.
I know, just this repeat of people, hey, pay attention, the dark side is actually bad. No, I got this.
I mean, it fucking happens every fucking generation of Jedi.
Yeah, like
What the fuck?
more,
Learn!
more fucking Exarchun, Revan, am I missing anybody else? Count Dooku, Anakin, the list goes on.
Thankfully not. Oh, okay. Okay. Kylo, if you're thinking canon, but fuck Disney canon. Not Jason. Jason Solo?
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, Ulic Qel-Droma's tragic tale would be passed throughout the history of the Jedi when his pupil Vima Sunrider placed his story in the Great Holocron, which is the largest known collection of Jedi knowledge ever in the library of the Jedi. Many Jedi, such as Revan, would be warned of a tale of Ulic Qel-Droma, and during the Mandalorian Wars, his triumph against Mandalore the Indomitable would be used as potent propaganda by the Republic to demoralize the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders. Which I think is pretty interesting. In the coming centuries, Ulic Qel-Droma's story would pass into legend and became immortalized through a series of poems called the Qel-Droma Epics, which according to the inhabitants of the Empress Teta system were seen as literal historical fact, even though some of the contents were seen as fanciful by modern scholars. The spot where Ulic killed his brother on Ossus and was stripped of his connection to the Force became a dark side Force revergence. So basically a dark side nexus in much the same way the dark side cave on Dagobah was. And that is the story of Ulic Qel-Droma and Nomi Sunrider.
Say Ulic Qel-Droma again, I'm gonna make you eat mayonnaise!
I know his story is kind of cliche for, the classic hero falls from grace, joins the evil people, is redeemed in the end. A very Darth Vader-like, and it's I guess storytelling, so to speak, if it makes any sense. But I think Ulic Qel-Droma is an interesting figure in his own right, and Nomi's Sunrider is also very interesting as well.
Yeah, her origin was the only interesting kind of thing, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Yeah, just being this widow who was forced to take up her own husband's lightsaber and become a Jedi. Yeah, that part was interesting.
Recovering next time.
Okay, that was our episode of Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi? Or in this case, oh my god, another story of Anakin Skywalker, but in the past.
Or how about take a shot every time Isaac says someone's full fucking name?
Well, getting that aside, Hannah, I think ever since getting back from G-Fest, I was actually given a very great idea. You want to guess what that idea said?
How am I supposed to guess? I don't know.
For the next episode, we will be exploring the kaiju of Star Wars.
Literally the fucking Zillow bees.
Well, there is much more than the Zillow bees, but yes, that is the obvious contender or the subject of our next episode.
Cool.
Any parting questions, Hannah? All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this little episode of the history of the Jedi. I know it was very a little bit interesting. If you guys are into that story, I thought it was pretty interesting, but I'm looking forward to the next episode. May the Force be with you, and Hannah, you got any closing statements?
Away, support my blog, please. Have a great day.
And may the Schwartz be with you. Bye-bye!